our first show of the Tunic Counter Gamers. My name is Will. I've been playing Flesh and Blood for about a year, and I still relatively consider myself new. Ning?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Also, I guess technically speaking, it's been almost a year and a half. So I think we started roughly around the same time, right, Will?
Heavy hitters, and you started like
Yeah.
right around bright
I'm like
lights.
bright lights, but
Yeah, we don't really.
basically only played once or twice. Yeah, we don't really count that.
You don't count that set.
Yeah.
And Trevor?
Yeah, I'm Trevor, and I started playing 2 years ago, right after Dynasty came out. So Outsiders, my first real set.
Wow. That explains the Arachne choice. It's all starting to make sense now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I figured. Yeah, you actually. I remember you 3-0'd Armory with your Arachne, or 4-0'd Armory with your Arachne. That's before the new Assassin cards came out and Hunted.
Yeah, it's like it's like my best achievement in this game.
Well, I don't know, man. You made a couple day twos too.
Yeah, but no, the Armory and Arachne started in day 2 following for sure.
Right.
Arachne.
So I know, our meta's pretty strong, and we've been kicking around the idea about starting this podcast. And so, me and Ning were traveling to Memphis for the Memphis calling, and so Ning, we were driving 6 hours. So why did we choose our name?
Because we're bad, Will.
Well, okay.
I'm somebody. So, whatchamacallit, in Atlanta Battle Hardened a year ago, I was on stream and I was using the Fandel Spring Tunic, and I may or may not forget once or twice every turn or so to tick it up, And so I think our big thing about this podcast is to kind of this is a learning podcast, this is a journey podcast, and so similarly with the Fandel Spring Tunic, you take it up 1, take it up 2, take it up 3. You got to go step by step, and then eventually you'll get that third one. You'll get your free resource. So that's what it's all about. It's the journey
and
remembering the Tunic.
I actually like the thought of that, because remembering the Tunic counter, actually, earning those incremental points of value throughout the game, actually does separate a really good player, like Trevor versus us, Ning, me and you. We're kind of like here. We had to bring in a good person to actually, help us brace with some more knowledge. So but I know I still forget about that Tunic counter, dude. So
I forgot about last Armory.
So how about you, Trevor? You ever forget your Tunic counter?
Yeah, that's why I stopped playing Heroes. I run it.
Yeah. There you go. You heard it here first.
That's the real trick.
Yeah. Just don't use it.
Yeah, so I think Ning kind of highlighted it. The mission of our channel is, it's really simple. It's to build a space where anyone, new player, lapsed gamer, seasoned vet, can learn and grow and connect really over this really good game. So I know I have a personal mission in this too, is I want to get better at the game. And I know talking about the basics and understanding the game from the ground up, it should help my gameplay in theory. That's what I'm hoping for. The stream.
It's so bad. Golly.
Yeah, I forgot about the stream, dog. I didn't realize that was the reason. That's so funny. I think you did really good during that game. I remember. I was like, damn, he's got him on
it's so, man. It's just, anyway. We can talk about that another day.
So for those viewers out there that are savvy with the Google Foo or the YouTube, it actually is on stream, so you can find that clip, and it's pretty kind of hilarious when Ning kind of realizes it. So.
Well, we'll definitely regale the tale at some point. It's a pretty good one.
So I think our first episode, it's really just kind of work out things and kind of get the flow going. But I think it's a good place to start for those people that are looking for this kind of content, and they're asking themselves, what makes Flesh and Blood so unique compared to other card games out there, right? So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I originally got into Flesh and Blood because I hated having to draw your resource card one at a time and then not being able to play your whole hand, and or you're getting to a point where you're essentially just you have no cards in your hand and you're just top decking from then on.
Mm.
And so the only card game that I've played of any kind that didn't have that kind of situation was actually Marvel Champions. The system was pretty similar to FAB, where you use your cards as a resource, and you the cards that you draw up you use on the enemy's turn, you use on your turn, and then you draw up at the end of your turn.
Mhm.
So it's a very similar flow, but it feels good because you always get a full hand of cards at the end of your turn, and so you always feel like you're doing something.
I remember when I first came over, it was super hard to remember to draw at the end of your turn. Right. I think that's the biggest thing. Like in every other game I played, it's always draw at the beginning, right? And that little change is so unique. It just opens up strategy.
Yep.
I mean, that's like a really big part of this game too. Is your turn really starts when on your opponent's turn, right? Because you get the full information of your hand, and then they start swinging at you, and you have to work out, like what's the best thing I can do with this hand when it gets back to my turn. Because like every decision you make on your opponent's turn, like using a card is like less resources on yours,
Right.
Which I thought was like, I hadn't seen any game really do that, but I never played a game that did the like using cards as resources for your other cards. I've only played the like Magic or Runeterra, where you just like get resources incrementally. So it was interesting. I like that a lot.
And people wouldn't think that, a 4-card hand versus, I don't remember, Magic 7 and Pokemon 6 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's funny because that 4-card hand, it really does reward tight play and really thoughtful decision making, right? And it's for 4 cards, you have such a minimal RNG compared to other card games. It's still a card game, so you're going to have that RNG element. But I feel like it still rewards the players that kind of give out that thought a little ahead of time, right? And really know what their hero does and what the other heroes do too. And I feel like it's less RNG in Flesh and Blood than it is in any of the other card game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, you get to draw up your every turn. You always end up with, well, generally speaking, you always end up with 4 cards in your hand. You get to essentially bank your extra card from the last turn in your arsenal, and then you get to kind of make decisions from then on. Whereas the other ones, it's like, oh, am I even going to see half of my deck? Whereas with Flesh and Blood, you, in a more fatiguey game, obviously, you're going to see your deck rotate, multiple times. So I think that always felt good too, when you're actually able to see the whole deck that you've constructed.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of works like inherently, right? Because like if you're like, you have like some power cards like lower down, you can just start blocking more, right? You'll stay alive longer. You'll get to those cards eventually, like sacrificing them, tempo or whatever. So you have like a lot of agency over like your overarching game plan, like in those like little like micro turn cycles.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit it. Like, defense is a key gameplay component. Like, more so, I think in Flesh and Blood, where blocking is a core mechanic. And you do have to manage your hand. I know you alluded to this earlier, but you have to manage your hand between attack and defense. And so, what you block now might cost you an attack next turn, but you living by blocking an extra attack this turn, those 3 points of extra value you might get early on by blocking can make you have one more additional turn to kind of get your combo off at the later half of the game. So that block or that defense at the beginning could actually end up costing you the game or winning you the game at the end. I mean, how many times have we came down to like 1 hit point, 2 hit points, and we were like, dang, why didn't I just block one more time when I could have,
Yeah. No, I think just inherently, how it's designed, like every game can, or most games can feel like really close. There's not a lot of blowouts really, because you will just like start pumping the brakes when you start getting low and like throwing more resources on defense rather than attacking.
Right.
And then eventually they'll draw like a clunker hand or something and give you an option to like really kind of start trying to swing back.
Yeah. And that's I feel like the unique turn structure of Flesh and Blood. I mean, every card game I feel like has a unique structure, but I think every Flesh and Blood turn cycle is really deliberate in what you do. Like you pitch, block, or attack, and that's really the main functions of your cards that you have in your deck.
Mhm.
But players are engaged on both attacking and defending. Right, so it's always like not to dish on Yu-Gi-Oh, but sometimes, or Pokemon for that matter, you really play your deck and your opponent just sits there sometimes. That's how I feel, right? So,
Yeah.
you guys got anything else that's kind of unique about Flesh and Blood that really drew you to the game? Like, let's say if a new player was, asking about Flesh and Blood, because I do see an uptick of newer players. Like, we have how many people come to Johns Creek and how many people that came to Duluth? Oh, shout out to Level Up, by the way, right? That's our local store. But how many players came there? Every set we always have 2 or 3 new players, and I don't know if they're masochist or if they just like the punishment, but they keep on coming back. And so there is always that front loading.
Same, right?
we all were there. Right? Shoot, I used to have to go to Vegas to pay for it, but now I just get it for free every week.
I think the unique mechanic about Flesh and Blood is with Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic. I mean, even One Piece, Lorcana, and Star Wars Unlimited, they're all about building a board and then making all these units attack one way or another. And people have to make a decision. Hey, am I going to destroy this unit or try to destroy this unit, or am I going to attack and hope for something miraculous to happen? I think with Flesh and Blood, it's less so, hey, I'm a commander commanding a whole army. Let's see what happens. Unless you're an illusionist who would play that, or the new necromancer. Yeah. So aside from those two, right, you have these. It's mostly. I think many people have kind of said it's very similar to like a fighting game, right? You attack the person now gets the opportunity to block, and then depending on the type of character you choose, now you get to react. So if it's your turn to attack, you can say, oh, you block this, well, I can use these either effects to kind of disrupt your turn, or I can pump up my numbers, and now you have the chance to either defend against my reaction with your reaction, and there's just this very nice back and forth. I think that just feels good from a game standpoint, as opposed to, oh, all of this is happening on my turn, and now it's your turn, and the only thing that you can really control on your opponent's turn is, I'm going to disrupt you, I'm going to make your turn more annoying to play, as opposed to, oh, this little fighting system going back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah. I know with like you said, like a fighting game, the back and forth, that's a really good analogy, and I hear that all the time, especially when it first started. And a lot of people don't realize that fighting game, it's also how well you know your character, all those combo moves, all those ins and outs, those split second decisions you have to make in an actual video game, but it also rewards you for knowing your opponent as well, like their move sets, right? So I think the first stage in comparing this to the video game is your character, and then the more you know the opponent's character, the better you are to navigate that match, right? Both in video games and in Flesh and Blood. So
right? Something is we haven't really touched on like just the heroes in general. Like people really like will associate like with one of them. And like really go like all in and like make it. Yeah, because like in like Magic or whatever, you like summon your guys, or like if you're playing commander or whatever, like you summon your commander, like you are, you're like hero, right? Like you're the one swinging the sword and stuff,
right?
So you kind of get like, yeah, like, I don't know, that one-on-one stuff is like really cool. I like that.
Yeah, and every hero is very good at feeling very unique, right? You have Rhinar and KO; they're both brutes, but they both play very differently. So I think it is neat. Or like all the assassins nobody would run the same deck but have a different hero, right? It just doesn't make sense. The flavor just isn't there, and everybody feels extremely unique. And I think that's just very fun as well.
Yeah, the hero-centric gameplay. Like again, you guys said it in Magic, you're the Planeswalker, and Pokemon, you're the trainer. I mentioned Pokemon a lot because that's why I used to dabble in when before I came to Flesh and Blood. And then so like in Flesh and Blood, you are the hero, right? Like you build your deck around the specific hero class, but also around a specific talent, which is like Mystic, Lightning, Earth, and currently I think it's Draconic, right? Um, so this creates really good themes and like mechanical cohesion within your deck too. So you might, like the looks. I base my character choice after looks. Like I like the look of Rhinar, Olympia, Teklovasan, which they all have their issues in the game currently, but they still look cool as hell, right?
Yeah.
But and then I do like the looks of the Enigma and the Prisms. I mean, those angels are beautiful, and those Jomai with their dragons. So
Illusion is fire, bro.
You think you know a guy, and then suddenly
look.
You were the brute guy for so long.
Well, I am the brute guy. I'm still the brute guy. I'm just waiting for the brute to come back out. Although there was a Rhinar list that made top 5 in one of the callings. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. That list is crazy.
Yeah, that's
Game on.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people were talking about it. I think another unique function of Flesh and Blood that we did not mention is it was specifically made to be played in person. Yes, for new players, we do have Talishar, Felt Table. There are webcam games. Like, so, if you're not on the Discord, I'd recommend highly joining the Discord because it's such a great resource. But it's designed. I mean, I feel the best playing face to face, right? As much as and as great as Talishar is, and that's a project of love by that one guy that makes all those programming things. That's crazy, but that's a project of love, right? But he knows it's only to scratch the itch, but it wasn't to replace the game itself. And I love how LSS, the game behind Flesh and Blood, kind of supports that because they know it's not going to replace Flesh and Blood in person, which is how it's designed to be. And yes, you play Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh in person. But, I can't help but feel like recently with, MTG Arena and, Yu-Gi-Oh has Master Duel, I feel like the convenience of those systems, especially with that type of gameplay, is making people gravitate more toward online play, and maybe you don't go out to be in person, right, as much. But Flesh and Blood, I feel like you always get the best games when you are like sitting down across your opponent,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually dislike playing on Talishar so much, and that's part of this this whole tunic counter story too, right? Where like so by the time that I participated in the Battle Hard in Atlanta, I had only really concentrated in playing about 1 or 2 months of Azuri. And most of the practice I got was through Talishar. And at the time, everything on Talishar is automated, right? And so, for example, the tunic counter, when you're in person, you can't forget. But on Talishar, it just goes up by itself, and then you're like, oh, I have a free one. Let me go ahead and use that resource, right? And so, I don't know. The being able to tactilely feel everything, and then also having to remember, oh, hey, here are all of my triggers, I think feels a lot better in person than when you're just clicking a button on the computer.
Yeah. No, I like 100% play like way better in person. Like I used to Talishar was it tabletop or something like in 40.
Yeah.
Like actually like touching your cards helps so much. Like it's actually insane. And like be able to keep track of like what I've actually played or pitched because I'm like actually like putting it under my deck, looking at it.
Right.
Just little things like that actually are like incredible for like because it's really complicated to keep track of. It
is a very complicated game.
It being like tactile and you holding cards in your hand, and there's something to be said about the actual having it not automated slows you down a little bit, right? Where it's less like, hey, I'm gonna just fling these cards out on an electronic screen, right? Where we might not remember, but if we have the cards in our hands, and we see this as a teaching method, physically touching something actually makes people remember things, things of that sort. But like, playing it out, I also feel like it slows down because most of the times I again forget the tunic counters because I'm so fast on my turn and I skip right over that first part and then go right into the play a card part. So
on your enemy's turn, you're like, all right, if I just block with these 2 cards and then I do this and that, then everything will be swell. And you're just like so focused on your game plan that you forget, oh, right, I have to tick it up at the start of my turn. So by the time that I've already laid down a card, it's too late to tick it up, technically speaking. And especially if you like go out and actual tournaments or pro quests or whatever and play, it's like, ooh, I can't actually pick it back up. So that sucks. You know, so yeah.
For those new players and veterans, do you ever look at the dice when or whatever token you're using when you get your Tunic counter and you're like, damn, if I just nudge it, you think they'll care, right? In an army, sure, they might be fine with it, but like if you do that in a tournament, judge,
that's cheating, dog.
You're right.
No. What I do is because assassins, generally speaking, you always want the tunic to be there, but you don't always. You don't always get the best value out of it, right? Because you don't always need that extra resource. So every time I forget the trigger and then it's on my opponent's turn, I'll think about it and say, did that matter? No, it did not. We're safe. It's fine. Not punished.
That's some crazy code.
At this point, if you for those YouTube watchers, right, you look at Trevor's face, I see a little regret that he joined us. Just a small.
Talk about getting better. We should talk about how to remember the tunic counter, not how to cope with forgetting it.
So
this is part of our journey, all right?
And that's why you're here, Trevor, because you'll say words of wisdom like that. There is actually a couple of methods I picked up. Like this is kind of slightly off topic, but since we're talking about the Tunic counter, for me, I just go around the clock. Right, and if I slow down and say, okay, before I even begin with my turn, I see my hands, I have to stop and say, okay, in a clock, I'm going to go around everything to make sure everything's clean before I take my turn. And it's usually helpful to do it, like just slow me down a little bit to remember the Tunic counter in that way whenever I'm playing it. But it's also good just to remember, what equipment you have sometimes, because I know, I mean, Trevor, you might not have this problem, but I certainly do. It's like, oops, I forgot I had a different weapon for my character because, because I sideboarded it out. So
yeah. Actually, when I was in Charlotte, my for the battle card in my game plan to Aurora was to run AB1, and I just forgot it. The first two matches I went into Aurora, and I was like, well, grounded's good enough. And
Yeah.
I think that one's not terrible, but my plan was to have AB, and I just didn't. But,
I mean, sideboard's an option until sideboarding's an option until you actually draw your cards and start the game, which is another unique thing about Flesh and Blood. Actually, if we talk about the sideboard, FAB is Flesh and Blood is a deck built around 80 cards. And you configure your 60 card list, the one you're actually fighting your opponent with, before each matchup, right? It depends on who you're fighting, and then you build your 60 card deck out of 80 cards you have. Now, most of the time, people have a 60 card core deck, and then they'll sideboard it in. But really, you just have 80 cards, and you got to remove the 20 cards or whatever it might be, until you get down to 60. Based off who you're fighting. Like against the Guardian, you might want to fat deck it, right? But that's leaving multiple cards in past your 60 card allotment. So I mean that's another thing that I did like about this. You have your 80 cards. I know Magic still 15 sideboard, and then you swap it in and out, but I can't remember.
My understanding is I don't know the number of sideboard cards, but my understanding is you just go in and you play, because it's I think best 2 out of 3, right? And so you go in, you just play from the get-go, no sideboarding. You finish the game, win or lose or whatever. You now know what kind of deck your opponent is playing, and then you can sideboard things in response to what just happened.
Which is interesting because that's Magic the Gathering's 2 out of 3 system. Win 2 games first to win the match. But in Flesh and Blood, you don't have time most of the time to go into 2 games per round or whatever. You fight 1 game, 55 minutes for Classic Constructed. So you see the hero, you see what turn you're doing, and then you select your sideboard, right? Isn't that the order?
And you also see how many weapons or offhand they have, because some heroes can. I believe I believe so, but I don't know because I'm fairly certain you're supposed to lay all your equipment flat, right?
Mhm.
And so therefore you would theoretically be able to see if they're running a two-handed weapon or a one-handed weapon. But I don't know. We'll call a judge for that one.
I do think you determine turn order first, right? Like for instance, you
Sure.
decide who's going first, second, and then that's when you select your equipment and your sideboard. So, and then you place your equipment and your weapons face down, right? So, yes, going to your point, you know, if you know you're going first, your weapon and armor equipment should already be face down, right? Because I know with
We might need to fact check that.
That's why we're the Tunic Counter gamers.
well, I'd be curious because the way it was explained to me with Vinny, and this was Tommy, shout out to Siblings and Cardboard, their podcast. But I think if you go first, you play, and again, Vincent, it's a Shadow Rune Blade. But you go first, you play Grasp of the Arc Knight. You go second, you play the one where you break it to make 2 rune chants, right, as an option. Vexing Quill Hand. I love how Trevor knows my cards better than I do. Oh, you also play Florian, so yeah. So I mean that's what I heard. Is that not correct?
Well, I know
we'll find out. Tune in next time.
Yeah, fair. Honestly, I'm kind of curious, but I know it would be like kind of like 50-50. Like I know Warrior was a big one, because like you'd be like, oh, like Dory or whatever, they're probably on like hatchets or something. Mm-hmm. But then you flip over like Decimeter Great Axe, and then you're like, oh, like that's like completely different from what I expected, Like they're gonna like fully try to fatigue. So I guess if you do, it's gonna be like one weapon, it would be like a huge hit. So
yeah,
I don't know. I didn't heard
the other big thing, right, is like if it was Dorinthian and it works the way that I think it's supposed to, it's like, oh, you only see one, but is it the Great Decimator or is it or the Decimator Great Axe or whatever, or is it Dawnblade? Who knows? Mm-hmm. Technically, all you know is it's a two-hander. You don't even know if they're on axes, so I don't know. Mm-hmm. It is interesting information to see. Like if you see a Zed with only one weapon in the weapon slot, and it's like, oh, he is obviously running the Crouching Tiger staff, right? So
see, already doing what it's set up to do, making us a better player. We'll find out this information and then we'll kind of confirm it next week because why not, right? I mean, that is in a tournament play. I mean, that would be very helpful to know before you even expose information to your opponent to know how much information you should be exposing. Mm-hmm. Just saying.
It is a struggle.
Yeah. So, okay. But yeah, I do like the sideboarding. And then, a couple of last points about Flesh and Blood's unique system is there's no mana, no energy system. Mm-hmm. Flesh and Blood uses a pitch system. And I know for all the veterans or lapsed gamers that are coming back, you're very familiar with this. Well, for the new players, generally means that every card that you have can generate a resource. Technically, there's bad hands, but there's no dead hands, right? And that's great because I know when I used to play the other games, you could draw a dead hand. You can mulligan and still draw a dead hand. In Flesh and Blood, there is no mulligan because you never draw a dead hand. You don't have optimized hands and you don't have great hands, but you can play your hand every turn. You got something. If you can't attack, then at least you can defend. And that thought behind that strategy behind that is also a very unique thing that's really kind of sets Flesh and Blood apart where, hey, I'm not just sitting here twiddling my thumb. Right? I actually can still play a game as long as I mitigate this well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that goes back to actually what happened with Ning in the skirmish with Data Dog.
Null Time?
Yeah, Null Time Zone. You want to tell that story, Ning? And then you could chip in, Trevor. I'm not sure if you heard this yet.
It's pretty brutal because I played against 2 Data Dolls that did this to me. So, I for the skirmish, which was Blitz, I was playing Zen, and then I was playing against Data Doll. The first one was against Thomas, and so what happened was on his turn, he was attacking, and I did a blue flick flag, and then to kind of in my head, I was thinking, all right, to make my turn work, I should just go ahead and change these into energies, and things will be dandy. So I went ahead and transcended 2 of these cards, and at the end of his turn, Thomas went ahead and said, oh, I'm just going to Null Time Zone, and the new card that I'm going to name is Energy. And so for those that don't know, what this card says is you can either play or pitch the card that was named. So for 2 turns, I was not able to use the inner chi, and so it was always in my hand. And the reason, well, we'll get into what I should have done in a second, but that I think kind of shows, oh, well, that is a quote unquote dead hand because I can't, I literally, these are now 2 dead cards in my hand that I can't get rid of for 2 turns, which then, on top of that disrespect, at the end of the second turn, he went ahead and put down another null time zone. And so actually, I couldn't do that for 4 turns. Now that I've thought of, and the part of the issue, I guess, is that I don't really play Zen, and so I don't use energy as often as somebody who does play Zen. And so the correct response that I should have done at the time is I should have gone ahead and used my Kasaya ability to be able to pitch one of the energies, and then I should have used my Zen ability on his turn to pitch the other one. So now I don't have 2 dead cards in my hand, turn after turn after turn. But these are definitely a lot of learning opportunities, if you will. So yeah, and then I played Andrew Cook, who was also playing David Dahl, and did the same thing. And I remembered the Kasaya thing, but it was after I lost that time, I was like, oh yeah, I could have also just pitched into Zen's ability, huh? Or worst case, I should have just Arsenal, just so I, maybe that card is stuck in the arsenal for the rest of the game. But Blitz is a short game anyway, and it's just better to be able to block at that point. So,
I mean, I think that's
how are you pitching Zen's ability.
You in reaction to him playing full time, I should have pitched and then pitched. Yeah.
I see.
And this kind of goes into, the more you know the game, the more you know the party systems and the turn order, the more you can get around it. And, unfortunately for Ning, he didn't see his out, but this is like, we going back to the no dead cards in your hand, everything has a play. But, and Trevor, feel free to speak to this, but sometimes you have to build your deck to kind of take into account that I need some kind of out at all times. Like, I'll mention Vincent since that's my most recent hero, but like I realized that if I had so much blood debt in my banish zone, which causes me to take damage each turn, at the end of my turn, I need to get more ways to give my attack to go. Again, that was the drawback of that deck. So, I go 2 gate wide or 2 rune gate wide to beat that. But like what Ning was saying, you have 2 energies, and now no time zone's a card up for Mechanologist. Maybe you have a backup plan, or that in order for you to get these dead cards out of your hand, you have these 2 outs in your deck that really gets rid of them. I'm not sure if you have anything with your current hero selection that you've experienced that with, where you kind of draw brick cans, or how do I navigate this?
Yeah. Florian doesn't. That's who I've been playing most recently for since he came out. He doesn't go wide very well, so it can actually be kind of awkward if you're kind of just kind of does a setup or something. Just build a board Vincent just play a bunch of auras, have a full grip. It can be awkward, but that's kind of something you do in deck instructions. We start running trot along and weird blues that just kind of help you go a little bit wider, because it's a blue block 3, it fits a lot of the criteria, but it's also if it was in big hand, you can use it on your sword or something, or do sword in the CNC, which is kind of sick. You just kind of get something out of there, But most of the time it's blocking, right? So it's doing something if they leave me with it, or if I need it for block. Yeah, right? So having these cards that do functions on those sides is very important for lives.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into our last the last point I had about why Flesh and Blood is such a unique game. And if every card has multiple uses. Like you said, it has pitch value, like your Trot Along, that's a blue card, but it's also blocks 3, and it's each card is multifunctional and multi-contextual. So it depends on the game. And I know we kind of talked all leading up to this point, but I feel like some other card games, and again, we're not bashing other card games. They've been long-standing great games for such a long time. We're talking about how Flesh and Blood is so unique. to this market. And it's been out for 5 years, which is still relatively young for a game. But the stuff they do and the thoughts they put into the game itself is unique in that way. But like the whole pitch, block, start out as strong as I can in the beginning of the game, get weaker over the course of time. Like, and that's another thing I really loved about Flesh and Blood. It's every card having multiple uses without it spelling it out on the card. Like, hey, you could block with this, you could attack with this. You know what it is just based off the numbers on those cards.
It's also really fun because, like, at the beginning of each game, everybody starts off with full suite of equipment and full HP and everything. And over the course of the game, it's just like fighting for real, right? Suddenly you use up the equipment starts to disappear, it gets really battered, it breaks, and everybody's now kind of weak, and it's just a slugfest at the end, hoping that the other person falls before you. And I think that's part of its charm as well, for sure.
100%.
So, I mean, that's pretty much all the points I had. But shout out to the viewers when we get some. I was wondering who that one viewer was. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that she watches for me, bro. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I thought she was watching for me. Okay. That's so funny. So I don't remember what I was about to say now. I guess like there is a lot of unique Flesh and Blood why people got into this game. I mean, like I know we talked about unique structure, but what actually got you guys into the game? Like, do you remember? Like, what drew you into it? What hooked you? Why did you lose the first 100 games, start winning one game? Or is it just me? I don't know. I lost for the first 3 months. So my first win was against Jose. Shout out. So
that's a tough one.
So what brought you in? Like, what got you interested? What hooked you? What was it?
Let's start off with Trevor as the veteran of this group.
True.
I was bored. It was like right after like everything was opening up for COVID. I didn't have too many hobbies.
Friends. Oh, hobbies. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I watched Majin Bay stream a lot, and he played Legends of Runeterra, and then which was like one of my favorite card games. It's dead now, rest in peace. But he would talk about Flesh and Blood every now and then it sounded interesting because it was like only in person, and he actually said, just go on web, do the event locator, find an armory, and he said, just show up, somebody will give you a deck, and like that was pretty much exactly what happened. Like I showed up and then said like I played like 2 games on the website with like their little interact thing.
Yeah,
I think I did.
Bravo.
Yeah. And I don't know, just like Unity, it was fun. Something to do every Thursday night or something.
Oh, was it Thursday?
Yeah. This was Peach State. This was a while ago. I don't think they do FAB anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to. At the time, I was trying to get into some hobby, and I was like, oh, I used to play trading card games like when I was a wee lad. And I looked into, the main ones, right? I didn't want to get into Magic because there's too many Magic cards. I didn't want to memorize all the Magic cards and do all the things, right? Same with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, but also, I was kind of saying, I also didn't really like the energy or the resource management systems in these traditional games. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Yu-Gi-Oh! Apparently, you can just win turn 0. I didn't want to deal with all that, right? So I just kind of did a little Google search, and Flesh and Blood came up. I think I YouTubed it or something, and saw the back and forth. Thought it was kind of interesting. Tried it on the felt table and the online tutorial on their website, and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess this is all right. And for like the first 10, 15 games, I kept losing to the AI on felt table. the AI on Felt Table is not very strong. Let me start that conversation there. But you know, it was like, oh, interesting. This is how the back and forth kind of goes. And then yeah, I think Bright Lights was just about to start, and it was mechanologist. And growing up, I was like, oh yeah, mechanologist kind of things are cool, like Iron Man building up, and now it's super suity. Uh, and that was really cool. So Bright Lights happened. I enjoyed the theme, but then I realized Bright Light's characters are too big brained for me, you know. And then I joined the CC, or I joined the Armory sometime later, and then very similar to Trevor. Um, Chris let me borrow his Bravo deck, and then played and lost, and yeah, it was a good time all around. So that's pretty much how it happened.
Nobody wanted to play the Bravo, so they just handed it to the new guy.
Yeah. Sounds
Well,
about right.
for new players, Guardian has a very simplified gameplay.
Yeah,
It doesn't make it a simple hero.
You block and you hit hard.
Yeah.
It's very
Mhm.
yeah.
I know for me, my story in Flesh and Blood was I have a 2.5 hour commute. It's an hour to work, an hour and a half back. And so I go through a lot of podcasts. I go through a lot of videos and audiobooks. And sometimes there's a perfect storm where I actually have nothing to listen to. Right. And when that happens, right, no video games are coming out that interest me. You know, I've saw the current hobby videos I have for, like, at the time it was Pokemon. Yeah, I start getting bored. Right. And I was like, man, I need another hobby to kind of get my attention to fill up this 2.5 hour commute. And so I was like, I kept on seeing those banners, right, in the level up stores, like the big wall banners that they have hanging up. I was like, oh, Flesh and Blood. I remember when it first came out, I was like, oh, you know, it's just another card game. It's going to die within 6 months, right? And then a year later, oh, Flesh and Blood. I should really get into this, right? It looks interesting. I like the character design. I like that art style. And then yeah, so didn't get into it then, and then I keep on seeing these banners, new heroes pop up, and then I think if you go to enough gaming stores, like I'm from Warhammer 40K, I played Age of Sigmar. My background is actually in poker. Right? I love poker. The issue is, like, you go to these game stores, your local game store, and you kind of see the advertising that goes on with it, and it kind of piques your interest. So you kind of do a little quick YouTube search or Google search, and you start looking into it. It's like, oh, this game seems pretty cool. What actually hooked me was when I went into the store. It was actually Level Up Johns Creek, and the guys were so cool, right? Like out of all the games I played, just really friendly, and they didn't have to be that friendly. I mean, they are really good players. They're day tours, like Trevor here, like they're top eighters. They win their invites, right? They don't hold their punches back, so you get your teeth kicked in, but they're so helpful when they're doing it that it's just, and they'll give you the decks
with a smile.
They do it with a smile, and they do not mind sharing the information of why you lost or what play you could have done better. And so it was like that community piece where, hey, we're going to treat you with respect, but we're not going to hold back so you can get better. And it's that mutual aspect there where it's like, hey, and oh, you don't have that card? Here's some cards for you, right? These are my extra bulk Marvel cards that I'm not going to use, but as a new player, it could help you out. And it did. I was like, man, I watched the first week, and they're like, hey, you got a deck? You want to play? I was like, no, I'm just here to watch. So I just loitered around the store, like looked at them played, and realized that there was no jerks at the table. Right? Even bad beats or bad losses, they still shake hands, fist bump, and then they part their ways. It's all fun and games, at the store. And other games, you don't really get that. Like, it's Pokemon, right? And I'm going to use this as an example. Yes, you fight age groups of all sorts, right? And sometimes you do have to beat up little kids, right? It's just the nature of these gameplays, right? I feel bad when that happens, right? And sometimes if you have a really optimized deck, because I have big boy dollars, right? It's like, do I hold back? And I hate playing less than I am, right?
Yeah.
But if you go all out, then you destroy the love of the game, because Pokemon's about trading first, playing second, right? So it was like, I kept on going back because they give you free cards for showing up. Now Flesh and Blood does that, gem packs. But, I was like, okay, with the guys and the banner, I was like, this game kind of got me hooked. And sucking so bad at this game. I don't know what it is. I just keep on showing up, right? It was something about that, like that challenge. Like I'm not used to being bad at anything I do, right? Like, and Flesh and Blood. Okay, that did sound arrogant.
Look at this guy. Golly.
I'm not used to being the bottom. Everything like the very lowest tier. Like usually I can pick up a card game. It's like, okay, I can play, right? At least I'm not losing. But like everyone's so, good. Like it just makes you want to get better. Right? You're in this hall of heroes, and you just want to kind of like destroy them, right? But you keep on getting kicked down, so you want to keep on coming back, So that's not a tier weapon. I had a little itch right there. But yeah, so I don't know. It's a great game. The community here, TLDR, the community here I find is like one of the friendliest but most competitive out there.
We got good vibes.
Yeah.
Good players.
All right. We do not give out bulk marvels, though. I want to correct that. People might give out bulk majestics, but not bulk marvels. We're not that nice of a community. We're a pretty good community, but like marvels, I don't know.
Ning, I think I was
inspired by his speech.
It's funny because I don't remember in Florida. Where did we go? Tampa, the world premiere. I kept on saying, "Hey, I got this Marvel," and they're like, "Oh, really? That's great." I showed them the Majestic, and they're like, "You knucklehead." I was like,
"Oh, that's no good."
Well, like it's kind of like how my brain connects it, like with you and Travis, another local player. I got Trevor and Travis, completely different people, right? The only thing they had is
they talk different. Yeah,
it's just different everything.
Well, yeah, they mostly play different people. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like two different people, and it took me so long to get Trevor's name locked in because I got Marvels and Majestic are the same thing. Anyways.
One step.
Yeah, one step. At least I'm getting your name right.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah. They only took Ning to beat it into my head like so many times, but all right. I think we're getting to kind of the wrapping up stage of this. I think it was a good talk of why Flesh and Blood is so unique to new players and why, veteran players and lapsed players can kind of come back. I mean, if they want to chime in, comments down below, right? But before we go, let's talk about some common misconceptions and myths. All right, and see if you guys have any thoughts on this. Right, Flesh and Blood is just another combat card game.
Granted, I don't play that many card games, but I would say Flesh and Blood is one of the more unique ones. Given, going back to what I said before, right? Most other card games are all about building your board state, getting your army up and then just kind of going all in. Whereas this is very much an actual back and forth, making hard decisions of, hey, if I do this on your turn, then that's going to make my turn worse. Or maybe that was the game plan, and this is the actual optimal way of playing my hand. And so I think, for it to be just another combat card game, I think is a bit of a odd take, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely just stands on its own legs, Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think like we talked about it earlier with them being like just wanting to be in person and then like surviving COVID, like it's just kind of built different,
Yeah. Because it came out during COVID, right, or right before it. Somehow it still lived as a game that you had to play in person.
Yeah, right. Like I feel like that's it's got enough uniqueness to like just stand on something and be something. Keep growing. Like I'm really excited to see what future holds. I'm really excited.
I mean, worst case scenario, if you think it's just another combat card game, I would recommend rewinding this podcast, starting at the beginning, and listening to it again, right, to understand why it's so unique, right? Another myth: it's too hard to learn.
Well, I think just know that you can't pitch from the arsenal, you can't block from your arsenal, and you should be golden, really. Everything else, it's obviously there's a skill ceiling, but as far as learning the game to play it, I think it's not difficult per se. But again, it's just like every other card game where it does have its own keywords, so you have to kind of learn what those keywords mean. But it's pretty simple to get into the swing of things, and then at the end of the day, it's just like everything else. It's just a couple of reps, and you'll be golden.
I think it's hard to win in this game, but you could keep learning. Like when you lose, it's not hard to get something out of any game you play.
Yeah, especially any new game that you're playing.
Yeah. Like if you play Hero for the first time, like you learn what they do. And future will be better.
Yeah, that's why Will and I really only compete in sealed events because everybody is learning brand new heroes, so it kind of brings us all down to the same equal footing.
Which is why the only top 8 I ever made was in a sealed or booster draft, right? So, I don't think it's too hard to learn. I actually think it's one of the easier games to learn, but it's really a hard game to master. I think we've said that, like high ceiling, but easy entry. So, all right. How about you need a massive collection to compete?
Like the smaller the collection, the better it'll be, right? Collections are just too expensive and make you focus on different heroes. Just focus on your one. It'll be easy. It'll be cheap. Call it a day. Or cheaper. Let me fix that statement. It'll be cheaper.
Yeah, you can 100% specialize and do really well. We got local Paul, top 8 killer at his first battle hardest.
The GOAT.
Cards for Prism.
Yeah.
So the GOAT.
Within a month of starting the game, we'll talk about Paul, and I think you mentioned it too, Trevor.
His own podcast, bro.
Well, actually, as a new player, it wouldn't be bad to bring him in, and we might be like foreshadowing, right? But yeah, I don't think it's I don't think you need a massive collection to compete. No. Like I like collecting bulk cards, but a lot of people don't. They just think it's chaff. But it goes to what Trevor was saying: specialist versus generalist, right? And there are some cards that are very expensive, but there are some heroes that you can really learn the foundations of Flesh and Blood with, and go very far with. Chris Martin is a good one to bring up because he specializes in warriors. But he plays his warriors really well, and there's a new warrior out there, Fang. He might not be top A meta tier list, but he is a contender. Right? He's won a few skirmishes already, and he's pinning out some good numbers, and people are still trying to figure him out. So, and he's relatively cheap to get into. I think those are the 3 biggest ones. Like there are some expensive cards. I think we can all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
But I know in my Vinny deck, well, they're all kind of expensive cards, but they weren't when I first picked them up, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on how you want to get into it. You can get into it like the sealed way and then work your way through that with that one hero, right? Or you can just pick up a hero that's not really supported currently and the prices are down lower on TCG Player or, in your local armory. Like people will hate certain heroes. Nothing wrong with the hero. Prism was like that for a long time. People started picking her up.
Yeah. I mean, like Bolton, I know, is relatively cheap to get into. Generally speaking, Mechanologist is as well. When I first started, Assassin was relatively cheap to get into. Now it's a very different story. Times have changed with new.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there are ways to go about it for sure.
And to make it like they got these armory decks that are fantastic resources for new players to get into. And hey, an armory deck that features a new hero, or I'm sorry, a new class, Necromancer, Pirate, is coming up. If you really want to get into this game, now's a great time to start. Even if it's to go to your locals, play with their decks for a few weeks until the new set comes out so you get some reps in. That's why I wish I did. I waited until Heavy Hitters came out to start playing. But I really wish I showed up in advance, borrowed the deck, and just learned the reps. Not even worry about purchasing the cards until the new set came out, and then really jumping into one of those heroes. I think that's how I would have started it if I could do it all over again. But I did the other way where I picked a hero that wasn't seeing a lot of play, who wasn't really well used, and that was Rhinar at the time. Brutes were still being hated on, and he was the cheapest deck to get into. So I was like, I want to play. So, and I built the Command and Conquerors and all those other expensive cards over time. But my first Rhino deck was History Pack, cards until the local players gave me Majestics. So
yeah. I think the local players were like, "Oh, you're playing Azuri? Have this shakedown." Like,
yeah,
you could be running trash for all I care, but you need these shakedowns. Shakedowns are cheap as heck anyway. Just take them. I was like, "Oh, great, thanks." So yeah.
I guess we'll wrap it up here. If you guys got any closing statements, then we could just go to chatting the shit. If you want, or the crap, shooting the crap. Yeah.
Shooting the crap. Yeah, overall, it's the game I think is very fun to get into, very fun to learn, very difficult to win. And but overall, we're still here, right? So still enjoying it.
Trevor, you want to add anything?
What you said?
Okay, I got you. All right. Well, if this episode helped you at all, with the basics, we'd love to hear from you. Comments are always welcomed. If we said anything that was so egregious, please post it down in the comments. Correct us. We would love to hear from you guys. Right. Also, don't forget to join. If you're a new player, really get on the Discord communities. There's a lot of YouTube resources, not only the Tunic Counter gamers, right? And then until next time, every turn is a decision. Every decision is a story. And don't forget your damn Tunic counter.